Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today, it's Fountain Pen Showdown Day. We're going to take a look at these two pens. We've got the Jinhao 9056 and the Majohn M1000. Two wooden pens, so I thought, yeah, this would be a good showdown. So join me now, down on the table. We'll take a look at the two pens, walk through the body, do some size comparisons, some weights and measures, a writing sample, then I'll give you my thoughts and some scores for these pens. Welcome down to the table. So here we've got today's pens. We've got the Jinhao 9056. This is in green sandalwood. You see hints of green here in this wooden material. Let's give this a quick turn around for you. And then that's going up against that Majohn M1000 in olive wood. Again, I do like here. Do you see where we've got the studs there in the wood? I think they look really nice. Just that little bit of extra detail, isn't it? Let's take a walk through the bodies. Not going to do a detailed walkthrough. There's separate videos on my channel if you want that. Just going to look really where there's similarities and differences. So the first difference we can see is the size. The M1000 a lot bigger. We'll take a closer look at that when we do our size comparisons and our measures. Obviously the wood's different. At the top finial, the Jinhao, the 9056, this is all wood. Whereas on the M1000 we've got this nice silver coloured metal. And then what I think is meant to be a pearl, it's not, it's plastic, but gives that pearl effect. On the M1000, it tapers out a lot more sharply, whereas we've got a more gentle taper here on the 9056. Clips. So on the 9056, we've got the clip actually going into the wood. That's a potential weak point because that means we've got a little opening there into the cap, which will let air in, so that could aid with the nib drying out. On the M1000, it goes onto an attached clip ring. Again, I'll just turn this around for you. The clips, very, very similar. That one's very stiff, the 9056. I've got them running all over today. And the M1000, yeah, I can just about move that to get that to clip. I don't use the clips very often, so it doesn't really bother me. Bottom of the cap, we've got a metal band going around on the M1000, whereas on the Jinhao 9056, we've got here some engraving. So we've got Jinhao, and then here we've got Heritage at the bottom. Very, very similar to the Conklin All-American. I don't know, this seems to want to walk today, doesn't it? Let's line this up again. The bodies. So the body on the 9056 all wood starts to taper down when it gets about 2/3 of the way down. On the Majohn, it looks like a similar width all the way down. Then we've got that metal ending again. I do like the way we've got the metal and the wood on the M1000. I think that just introduces a little bit more visual interest. Although the all wood version of the 9056, again, it is also visually interesting. The caps. So on the 9056, we go half, one, about 1.5 turns. And on the M1000, half, one, about just over 1.25 turns. And I put the two pens right next to each other so we can take a closer look at the nibs. So with the Jinhao 9056, this is not the nib that came with it. It came with a standard medium Jinhao nib, a number 6 nib. It's good nib, writes really well, had no issues with it. But I wanted a nib with a bit more character. So what I've actually got in here is a Kiwi Pens cursive italic, which does give some really nice line variation. As you can see, it's got that little bit of like a stubby type nature to it there. The nib itself, we've got some engraving, we've got a little bit of writing, and then there's a circle at the bottom. With the M1000, this is the Moonman nib, or the Majohn nib. This is a nib that came with it. So again, got a decorative border, all the same colour. We've got Moonman, so it's still got that old Moonman labelling there on the nib. We've got a logo, and at the bottom we've got M. This is a medium nib. Let's take off the bodies. So we've got a converter there in the 9056, and we've also got a converter here in the Majohn M1000. Just pop these back together. Let's swap on over and we'll do some size comparisons. Here's my standard size comparisons, the Pilot Metropolitan and the Lamy Safari. The M1000 definitely longer, whereas the 9056 roughly the same in terms of length. Both these pens are fairly wide. I struggled to get them next to each other on my little stand, so it was a bit of a push. Certainly they are both wider than the Metropolitan and the Safari. Let's pop the caps off. With the caps off, slightly different story for the M1000. Now, all four pens very roughly the same length. With the caps off, slightly different story for that M1000. Now, all four pens are very roughly the same length. In the hand, we'll start with the Jinhao. It's a nice fit, feels a bit on the light side. Nice wide section, I do like that about it. It's very comfortable to write with. It's a plastic section, your fingers don't seem to slip on it. Does seem a little bit on the short side. It will post, but when I post it, it feels back heavy and clumsy to me. With the M1000, this feels a lot weightier. I think this is a metal pen and this wood is just a sheath over it. Metal section, bit thinner. I do see my fingers do tend to slip and slide a little bit on this section. There is a tiny lip at the bottom though, so you know roughly when your fingers are at the bottom. If you hold a pen like me, where I hold it at the bottom. If you hold the pen further up, you've got an issue there with threads which may dig into your fingers a little bit. Still feels a bit on the short side. This one just does not post. No matter what you do, it will not go on. Let's swap over and we'll fetch in some pens in roughly the same price range. The pens I brought in, we've got the Fountain Pen Revolution Darjeeling. That was 20 Aussie dollars. The Jinhao 9056, 20 Aussie dollars. The Majohn or Moonman M1000, 54 Aussie dollars. And we've got the Asvine V169 at 55 Aussie dollars. So very similar prices. All of them got number 6 size nibs. All of them got their original nibs, apart from that 9056, which, as I've already said, it's got that Kiwi Pens cursive italic nib. Looking at them here, the 9056 does look like it's the shortest of the bunch, with the Asvine just pipping that M1000 for the longest. Let's pop the caps on. With the caps on, because of the width, mainly in the caps, it's been very difficult to get them all to sit on my stand next to each other, so I've had to leave this gap. And as you can see, between the Fountain Pen Revolution and the 9056, we've got a definite angle there because I just can't get them to sit next to each other. But certainly here, again, the M1000, that's now the longest. Then the Asvine and the 9056 getting close to each other. The shortest of them with the cap on is that Fountain Pen Revolution Darjeeling. Let's swap on over and fetch in the rule of measuring. Here we've got the rule of measuring. We'll start with the Jinhao 9056. So the pen with the cap on, that's 14.3 centimetres. Unposted. And stop it from rolling. That's 12.6 centimetres. Posted. Here we're looking at 16.7 centimetres. The width of the body is 1.54 at the widest. With the cap, it's 1.71. And the section goes from 1.17 up to 1.24. I say nice wide section. With the Majohn or Moonman M1000, the entire pen is about 14.7 centimetres. Unposted. That comes in at 12.8 centimetres. As we've said, it won't post. The width of the body at its widest is 1.47, so slightly narrower. The width of the cap, 1.7, so the same really as we've seen with the 9056. The section goes from 1.05 up to 1.15. So again, as I say, it's a slightly narrower section. Let's move this out of the way and fetch in the scales of weighing. Here we've got the scales of weighing. We'll start with the Jinhao. So the full pen, 40 grams. So not a light pen, certainly though not a heavy pen. The pen itself, if I can stop it from rolling, just use the cap there, 25 grams. The cap, 14 grams. With the M1000, so the full pen, 63 grams, so 50% more in terms of weight. Body itself, 44 grams. The body weighs more than the entirety of the 9056. Cap, 19 grams. You definitely notice the extra weight, and I've got to be honest, I do like that extra weight. You know it's in your hand, you know you can feel it there when you're writing. Let's get this out of the way, and we'll fetch in the notepad of testing. Just dropping in to interrupt your regular programming. Would you like to help support the channel? If so, please consider joining as a member. As a member, you'll get early access to my videos. I normally upload them a couple of days before they go out, and as soon as they're uploaded, they'll be released to members. There'll also be a shout out at the end of the videos, and then as we get the members coming in, we'll actually chat among ourselves and work out what other perks, what other things you'd like me to add in. You know, would you like maybe a monthly live chat just for members? All down to us. So please, if you can, consider joining the channel. A link will be in the description down below. Here we've got a notepad of testing. This is Oxford Optic paper, 90 GSM paper, nice fountain pen friendly paper. We're going to start with the Jinhao 9056. So we've got here Jinhao 9056. It's actually a medium cursive italic nib. Price for the pen, 20 Aussie dollars. For the nib is another 15 Aussie dollars. So $35 in total. The ink is by Dominant Industry. And it's Winter Wood. A nice brown ink that's also got some hints of green in it. So very similar to the body. Drying times. So we go immediate. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, that's nice and dry. Line variation. So this is going down. That was very little pressure. I'm going to add a bit more pressure. Not a lot though. This nib does feel very stiff, but I do get a slightly wider line. This is going across though. So this is where the nib starts to come into its own. So no pressure, with some pressure, none, with, none, and with. It gives you some nice interesting character in your writing. I'm going to move the mic down to the page and write a sentence. You may have noticed here on the B, one of the things I've noticed with this nib, I have to make sure I'm getting it at the right angle, otherwise it doesn't write. That's just something that comes with thought and with practice. Flow test. And going backwards. Yep, very nice. Nice, enjoyable pen. I love this nib in this pen. It just adds character to my writing. As I say, the only thing is I need to slow down a little bit when I'm using it, just because to make sure I don't get any of these issues. But sometimes slowing down is actually a good thing. It lets you think a bit more detailed, doesn't it? So that was the Jinhao 9056. Now we've got the Majohn or the Moonman M1000. Love this olive wood colour. It's really nice. It's bright, isn't it? It really shows off the pen really well. Just going to move that paper up ever so slightly. So we've got a Majohn M1000 with a medium nib. Price for this pen, 54 Aussie dollars. The ink is by Diamine and it's Autumn Oak. Slightly darker ink than the body, but I do think it's a nice match. Drying times, so we got immediate, 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Again, 30 seconds, nice and dry. Line variation, so no pressure. With some pressure. Again, the nib feels fairly stiff. See a little teeny bit of difference, but not really that much. None with, none with, none with. Let's move the mic and write the sentence. That's nice. A lot smoother feeling than what I was getting on the 9056. Finally, our flow test. Then the other direction. No issues there. So that's the Majohn M1000. So what are my thoughts on these two pens? These are two very nice wooden pens. I enjoy them both and in slightly different ways. But let's start going through my scores. So we'll start with pen looks. The 9056, I love the wooden material. It's got some hints of green, as I said. Not sure if that comes out on the camera, but certainly to the eye, we get little hints of that green for that green sandalwood. It's nice, it's wood, it looks elegant, nice to take to meetings. With the M1000, I just think this looks a little bit more, it's got a little bit more wow factor. I think that paler wood really grabs the eye, but then where we've got these studs in with this pattern, so as you see we've got a pattern here on the cap, and then on the body we've just got, it's in lines, but I just think it's a little bit extra detail which does add a lot. I also like the way we've got the metal trim which does offset that body and fetches out the body as well. So I'm going to give the Jinhao 8 out of 10, and I'm going to give the Majohn M1000 9 out of 10. Build quality, they're both good solid pens. Not had any issues with them. Had the 9056 a lot longer than I've had the M1000, so that's had a lot more use. But both pens have been used quite a bit. Both pens had no issues. They both seem really good build quality. 8 out of 10 for both of them. Writing experience, I love the character that I get from this pen. I love the way we get that cursive italics. We've got the wider down lines, the narrower cross lines. I like my nibs that have got character to them. Really enjoyable, really nice to use. One thing I will say though, not so much on this paper, but certainly on cheaper paper, I do find that the edge of the nib does tend to sometimes catch on the paper. So again, just something I have to be aware of. I also like the fact that it slows me down when I'm writing, so it helps with my thinking process as well. Going to give that an 8 out of 10. With the M1000, it's a nice nib. It's a good standard Moonman nib. My only problem is it's a medium nib. I'm not really into medium, and I do find this seems to me to be on the finer side of a medium as well. Still though, it's a nice nib, but because of the narrowness of it, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Ink flow, no real issues with either of them, as you've seen both are there and here. No hard starts, no skipping. Going to give them both 8 out of 10. Comfort, they both fit well in the hand. The 9056 does feel a little bit on the light side for me, although it's not light at 40 grams, but it just feels a bit on the light side. So I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. The comfort though for the M1000, this extra weight makes such a difference. It makes up for the fact that the section is narrower. It makes up for the fact that the section is metal and a little bit slippy. It just feels so pleasant in the hand when I'm writing. So with the M1000, I'm actually going to give that a 9 out of 10. Value for money. Always the interesting one, this. I know, I say that quite often, don't I? At $20 for the base pen, the 9056 is very good value. It's a good starter pen. It's got a bit of elegance to it. You know, it looks like it would have cost more. With the M1000, it's a good solid performer. The body, the way it looks, it's got character. The writing, not so much, but still it's a good solid pen. $54, I actually think is quite fair for this one. So for both of these pens, I'm going to give value for money of 8 out of 10. So that means the total score for the Jinhao 9056 with Dominant Industry Winterwood is 8 out of 10. And for the Majohn M1000 with Diamine Autumn Oak, that's 8.17 out of 10. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What are your thoughts on these pens? What other wooden pens from China have you got? Please drop your comments down below. Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.